Day 4 at the Gabba, it's absolutely hosing it down with the rain. Australia are 2-0 up in the series after a second straight 8-wicket win. Vish, slightly different day to maybe what we were expecting with that very long partnership between Will Jacks and Ben Stokes before the inevitable was confirmed.
Yeah, and I mean, we asked Ben Stokes in the press conference if it was a change of approach, and he didn't really answer the question, and I think he was wise to, because I don't necessarily see anything, or didn't necessarily see anything in that partnership that reflected a change of approach. It was purely about a situation and a man, really, who has been tethered to this whole thing in Ben Stokes, and a newcomer in Will Jacks, a relative newcomer, really, in terms of this iteration of Ben Stokes' England team, just doing his job. I think ultimately they still lost their last 4 wickets in 7 overs to one pretty horrendous shot in particular. I mean, Gus Atkinson is a far better batter than what we've seen so far, and he's someone who actually has taken on responsibility with the bat quite well. I think back to the India series and that culmination of that incredible final day at the Oval, where it was pretty much all on him and he almost did it, but it was a shot of a tired man, and somehow managed to rival Harry Brook's shot as the worst of the match. Harry Brook's shot being the one against Mitchell Starc in the first innings.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty criminal, really, from Atkinson. I think given that he's a player who had Test 100 just back-to-back ahead of Bridie Garson this series, it was a situation where the bumper barrage could not have been more telegraphed. I mean, you could literally have held up a sign with "this ball is going to be a bumper," and it would sort of have been equally obvious. It was inevitable that he was going to bowl a short ball. Atkinson could have ducked it, could have swayed out of the way, could have tried to block it. Instead, picked out Smith at short mid wicket. That, maybe he tried to keep it down to be very generous to him, but I thought it was a really poor piece of cricket from a player who England need a lot more from, really, in this series. And I think the fact that he then nipped out a couple of early wickets with the ball almost only then further emphasised that. I think there were moments, obviously the nature of a 4th innings target like the one we had is that teams are going to go pretty hard, they're going to attack, but there were moments where England actually looked pretty good with that new ball, and it looked quite tricky to bat under lights, particularly when Jofra Archer was hitting 150 kilometres an hour. So I felt like Atkinson's couple of wickets actually underlined just how poor a decision he made with the bat, and I think for all that Stokes and Jacks dug in today, I think that was very much a situational thing. I did think it was telling, though, that Ben Stokes admitted really for the first time that on the sort of key, I suppose, metrics or areas or themes that he likes to judge his England team on, it was an admission that the idea of absorbing pressure that they've spoken about a lot, and we've not always seen, we have seen sometimes over the past couple of years, is the one where he feels they're weakest right now.
Which is a maturity problem, really, isn't it? And it's kind of a maturity problem that I wouldn't actually put at Stokes' door, but I think is the product of his management of people rather than his captaincy, because he's been someone who's wanted to insulate them from a lot of the bad things, because he knows how detrimental effect they can have on cricketers, and having experienced that himself, as he said, he doesn't really want anyone else to go through that. And the problem with that is you need the struggle. You need the struggle to appreciate when the times are good that you've got to make hay when the sun shines. You can't be, as Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope are, 2 people with 124 caps between them, something like that, 61 and 63 for Crawley and Pope, who still seem quite juvenile in their approach. Obviously, a lot of that is because you want to keep them free-spirited. But this is a game of consequence and reacting to consequence. And the consequence is right now that England are 2-0 down. Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is Australia was so damn good at doing the simple things really well. Keeper up. Michael Nisa bowling like a dream, really.
Hitting that crack that Stokes mentioned running down the pitch.
Exactly, that kind of level of consistency. And ultimately, on a day that England simplified their approach, Australia simplified it further and are 2-0 up and running away with this, despite the fact that, they've just won a test at the Gabba, a day-night game. They've rolled their 2 statistical, bankers into one and done it without they very much did it with Mitchell Starc, but they did it without Josh Hazlewood, they did it without Pat Cummins, and they did it without Nathan Lyon. And it's a really peculiar thing that at this juncture to think that Australia have not gone toe-to-toe with England. They've sat back and waited for England to come to them and push them over.
Just briefly, we had a great moment of Ashes theatre with Jofra Archer bowling to Steve Smith right at the end. It was obviously a pretty low consequence situation with 20 odd to win, but Smith really taking on the short ball. It was great to watch, really. The fact that you have someone charging in at that stage of the game, bowling 150 kilometres an hour or 93 miles an hour, Smith really going for it, taking him on, and then that little sort of, it's one of those verbal exchanges that gets played up a lot, but I think was an instant classic, really, of Ashes cricket.
It was, and it was also emblematic of just where these two teams are. Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly cool to see Archer bowling that quickly, and why haven't he got panged for 6 by Smith, who won it with a 6?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up from the Gabba. As you can see, it's a horrible storm behind us. Who knows, maybe if England could have taken this into a 5th day, it might have been a rainy draw, but here we are at 2-0. Plenty more fallout to come.